Well, last night, the Israeli military announced it had taken tactical control of the corridor which runs along the border between Gaza and Egypt and serves as a crucial supply line for Hamas to rearm itself through cross-border smuggling. Well, as Israel continues to make progress, the Biden administration insists on providing minimal support for the Jewish state, slow-walking weapons, and then this week confirming it will not support sanctions on the International Criminal Court for its overreach by seeking arrest warrants for Israeli leaders. So what message does this send to the international community? Joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Mike Waltz. He serves on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He represents the 6th Congressional District of Florida, and he is a retired colonel from the United States Army. Congressman Waltz, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Always a blessing to be with you.
Well, it's good to see you. And I know the Congress has been out this week for Memorial Day, but the White House still making news, announcing this week that it will oppose a sanctions bill against the International Criminal Courts that is teed up to be moved next week when Congress returns. Your reaction?
Well, a couple of things that I would just add to your lead in there, Tony. One, Secretary of State, Biden's Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, initially reacted to the indictments from the criminal court on a duly and freely elected prime minister and minister of defense in Israel. Blinken reacted that this was absurd, that it was ridiculous, that it was in line with a long history of absurd rulings from the ICC, including going after members of the United States military in the past. And then the other thing I would add, Tony, and this is what explains the shift from the administration, from Blinken saying it was absurd to now Biden's spokesperson saying we're going to oppose sanctions. And that's the members of the squad and the progressive left and their supporters all cheerleading for the ICC going after Israel and going after Netanyahu. So once again, this is international American foreign policy being made for what's good or bad for Biden in an election year and his play to his progressive Democratic base. Period. That's all this is about, because everyone knows the ICC is anti-American, anti-Israel, and has been, and Lindsey Graham's exactly right. By not standing up, we're opening Pandora's box here for them to come after us next.
Congressman Waltz, a really good point in terms of pointing out what's behind the shift. But I want to elaborate on that, because this is not the first time we've seen the administration take a pro-Israel position, which would be natural for us to support our ally, only to reverse course. Mm-hmm. That would tell me that if you're not, you don't change policy overnight within your administration unless you are not founded on some kind of principle. I mean, and you're absolutely right. This is driven by politics, not by the principle of the position.
Well, that's absolutely right. You saw Blinken's reaction for a change. That was actually the right reaction from this Secretary of State. But then he ran into Biden's political operation that said, no, no, no. We had over 100,000 Michigan Democrats in the dead of a Michigan winter drive after work just to register protest votes, which is about 10 times the amount. Even if they just don't vote at all and don't turn out, that's going to cost Biden that state, that critical swing state. So this is pure politics, and that's pathetic. And it's going to open up a precedent that is going to affect all of us as Americans. And then finally, in terms of your original question, what message does this send? Well, it sends the message to Iran and to Hamas: hold out, we're winning. They're willing to sacrifice the Palestinian people to turn world opinion on Israel. And everything Biden's doing is playing right into their hands. And by the way, we just have to continue to remind everyone, Americans are being held hostage right now as we speak in horrific conditions.
Well, there's someone else in the audience watching as well, Congressman, one that you and I have talked about many times. We share the same concern over China. And yesterday, China's leader, Xi Jinping, said at a meeting between China and Arab nations that he supports a Palestinian state. Now, Israel continues to be isolated without strong backing from the United States. China is once again, we see them as a puppet master.
Well, that's right. And this is what happens when you have weakness in the White House and when you have a weak foreign policy abroad. Bad actors fill the void. When you have an absence of leadership, China is going to step in. We see Russia on the march. And I would just say, I'll remind everyone of China's position. Even in Israeli politics, there are some on their political left that want to be friendlier to China in the long run. And at the end of the day, the United States should be, and as long as me and you and others have a voice in it, will be Israel's strongest ally. And it's precisely because of our shared values. And to see
Right.
The Biden administration walk away from that, to see the progressive left walk away, I mean, it's sad, but it's not surprising because you have a progressive left that believes America is inherently misogynist, racist, and colonialist, and views the world through the lens of oppressor and oppressed. And because I guess the Israel and many Jewish Americans are relatively well off, that puts them in the oppressor class. It's the only way to explain it through their worldview. It's absolutely wrong, and we'll continue to stand against it. And I think Speaker Johnson's exactly right in bringing the legislation to the floor that would put sanctions on the ICC. Enough is enough.
You know, as the international community continues to back away from Israel, the evidence that they continue to uncover show exactly what Hamas was doing. I mean, we've got now, as they've moved into Rafah, they've shut down Hamas's smuggling lines. Reports now indicate that they have uncovered dozens of tunnels right on the Egyptian border, which is creating greater tension with Egypt. Egypt even denying that these tunnels, these smuggling routes, existed from Egypt into Gaza.
Well, yeah, look, Tony, I think we could and should be having behind the scenes a much tougher conversation with Egypt, with the Gulf Arab states and others about taking, they talk publicly a talk about the Palestinians, but nobody seems to want to take responsibility for them. And I think we need to be having much tougher conversations behind the scenes. It's just relatively easy, I think, to isolate Netanyahu and then for China and others to pile on. But again, for this administration to back away, whether it's in the UN, International Criminal Court, Chuck Schumer, the most senior elected Jewish American in Washington, D.C., calling for regime change in the middle of the war. This is just, I just don't want to ever hear a single lecture about any kind of political pandering from the Democrats with what we're witnessing right now. And literally, lives are at stake. And the best way that we could support Israel is to do a 180 on our Iran policy and go back to maximum pressure, cut off the resources and the cash, and allow Israel to finish the job as quickly as possible so that then we can talk about humanitarian relief and rebuilding.
Congressman, about 45 seconds left. Yesterday, Israel's national security advisor said he expects the war to continue through at least the end of the year. Your assessment?
Yeah, I think so. This is the toughest form of warfare. As you said, Tony, I'm a Green Beret by background, and this densely packed urban warfare with miles and miles of tunnels that they've reinforced and built over time, and they're hiding 30,000 plus fighters amongst 3 million civilians. It couldn't get any tougher. Another reason why Israel needs all the support it can get.
Yes, our prayers and our political support. Congressman Mike Waltz, always great to talk with you and always appreciate your insights.
All right. Thank you, Tony.